The Hollowing. Chapter 11. The Final Thread. It had been so long since Sally had danced with her love in the courtyard, or walked among the veils that separated worlds, that it was hard for her to remember if any of it were even real. As she watched the pieces of burlap swirl in the wind, roused by the commotion of so many men working in unison to introduce Jack to his final fate, she remembered that eternal moment when she had watched as Oogie was torn from his body and sealed in that wretched cloth. Lost in both moments, she numbly scrambled to gather the bits of Oogie's shroud, making sure to collect every last piece. Sally bundled them together and wept. Oblivious to the world around her, she sat and cradled the last memory of Ugathon Boogeth, ruler of the Kingdom of Twilight. She sat alone in the stone corridor among the empty prison cells for days. It was the cold that finally roused her from her trance. An empty, cold expanse had begun to fill the abandoned prison as the last magic had finally faded from it, drained like sand in a broken hourglass. She awoke as if from a dream, though she had not slept. The growing emptiness made her feel that it had all been real. From her love for her king, to Jack's cruel reign, and then discovering that Oogie was alive, only to lose him again that same day. That thought was more than she could bear. Slowly, Sally rose from her place on the floor, still holding the bundle of rags as though it were something immeasurably fragile. As if in a fog, she rose and left this place of final sorrows. She retreated deep into the swamp, far from prying eyes, and on a small island in the middle of a bog, she sat and arranged the pieces of Oogie. Softly, she began to hum a tune she'd never heard before, as she pulled the sewing needle from her pocket. Sally somehow felt comforted, as if the souls of the bodies she had come to inhabit were there with her, offering her comfort. She began plucking long strands of her hair from her head and twisting them into a thread that matched her own stitching. Her hands knew their business. They began sewing the shroud back together. After destroying as much of Jack as they could, the Asir gathered their brothers, who were too weak to walk, from the now open cells, and made their way home in silence. The three boys had watched in horror as it all went wrong, never imagining their plan would unfold this way. Oogie and Jack both dead, Sally broken on the floor. All hope seemed lost. Over the days that followed, they would check on Sally, trying to get her to join them in their guardhouse in the warmth of the home they'd made. But Sally didn't seem to see them. Though she knelt right in front of them, she was at the same time somewhere far away. They took turns keeping watch over her personal bodyguards. The bugs were nearly all gone now, and as the last few stragglers scurried away, Sally finally stirred. Silently, without acknowledging any of the boys, she rose and retreated to the swamplands. They took turns watching over her in this place too, half watching Sally from a distance, half standing guard against the hollow men. Sally would not speak to anyone. She simply sat and sang a soft melody in a language they could not understand, and she sewed. At the beginning of the third day, the boys gathered in the swamp, again noticing a trail beginning to form, like the one that had led them to Oogie in the prison after the change. The bugs were once again swarming together, but unlike the last time, they emitted a strange glow, twisting and winding their way through the trees, winding their way to Sally.